Donald Trump's top Department of Justice officials made numerous incriminating admissions during the recent CPAC. Trump's Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanch, speaking on behalf of the DOJ at the CPAC convention in Dallas, Texas, stated that he and others in the Trump cabinet and other top officials at the DOJ fear that they will become prosecuted if a Democrat wins the presidency in 2028. And then Blanche proceeded to say a bunch of incriminating stuff that would give grounds, in my opinion, for a potential Democratic president's administration to prosecute them. I mean, he starts talking about putting ICE agents at polling stations. He starts bragging about helping the January 6th insurrectionists. He talks about targeting Alvin Bragg and Fani Willis in New York with criminal prosecutions and other threats. He talks about unlawfully terminating FBI agents who were in any way involved in investigating Donald Trump's behavior after his first term and during his first term. He talks about going after prosecutors and others who worked with special counsel Jack Smith and others at the DOJ who in any way were helpful with Jack Smith. And so he goes and says all of these things. I mean, he gives evidence to people like Mark Zaid, one of the lawyers representing FBI agents in the unlawful termination lawsuits against Blanche. He writes, "Thank you, Deputy Director Blanche, for providing yet another great court exhibit for our ongoing and more forthcoming litigation against the FBI, DOJ, and this administration for its unlawful political filings of federal employees who simply perform their job." So this is like unprecedented, bizarre stuff. Even for a deputy attorney general to be speaking at such a political event like this. I mean, CPAC is the Conservative Political Action Committee. So just even the idea that a deputy AG is talking at this event at all is inappropriate. And then what he says is deeply inappropriate and incriminating. I'll give you an example. So it starts off, Todd Blanche reveals that Trump's entire cabinet is terrified of being indicted if a Democrat wins in 2028. Let's play this clip.
Everybody's afraid that the next administration, if we don't win, we're going to all be investigated and indicted. Think about that. This is not a third world country. This is America. And the existing administration is afraid that they're going to get indicted. And why are they afraid? Because that's exactly what happened during the last administration. All of President Trump's cabinet, everybody that worked in the White House, his Secret Service detail had to go to the grand jury.
Yeah, they went to a grand jury. They testified before the grand jury. If they were engaged in criminal conduct, that's what happens. Then Todd Blanche started saying, why do people have objections to us sending ICE agents to polling places? People are worried about masked agents at polling places. Here, watch what he says. Let's play it.
Like, why is there objection to sending ICE officers to polling places? Illegals can't vote.
So show me incidents, Todd Blanche, where you believe illegals have voted. Show me the cases where that's been prosecuted. Show me all this illegals voting right now. Show me where that's been going on, other than you all using it as a pretext to attack people who are here without the paperwork. But show me where this is actually. Oh, there, you don't have any examples. You just use this to go after migrants. I get it. I mean, there's no evidence in most things that you do anyway. So I hear you. Here he is saying, I don't get why people are upset and saying that we're not doing good things at the DOJ. Think about what we did with the January 6th insurrectionists and those convicted of seditious conspiracy. We freed them all. So isn't that good? We did that. Here, play this clip.
And so, look, when you talk about justice, we're working hard every day. And I don't just say working hard as a cliche. I mean, the Attorney General and myself, every single day, 7 days a week, are focused on bringing justice, and it will come. And I know every single person in this room is saying to themselves, why is it taking so long? Raise your hand if you're just thinking that. All right, I was basically right. And here's the answer. Here's the answer. I want to talk about it. Here's the answer. For one, it's not taking so long. For one, we have already done more in 1 year than any administration has ever done before. If you look at what happened to the men and women convicted because of January 6th, by 5 p.m. on January 20th, every one of them was either pardoned or had their sentence commuted. Okay?
So they're saying that the way the Justice Department's worked hard was by letting the criminals back out. I mean, this is a deranged group. Then he goes and says, in response to a question by this guy, Schlapp, who's got his own very dark past and background, he's like, Alvin Bragg, Fani Willis, the cast of characters, will they be brought to justice at this political event? And then I'll show you what Blanche says. Let's play it.
Alvin Bragg, Fani Willis, this cast of characters, ever get any justice?
Well, yes. I mean, of course. Like, look, yes. And
then when it comes to the FBI, he says, look, we've cleaned house at the FBI. Let's play it.
And when it comes to the FBI, which takes a lot of criticism, especially because of what happened over the past several years, Director Patel has cleaned house there too. There isn't a single man or woman with a gun, federal agent, still in that organization that had anything to do with the prosecution of President Trump.
And then he talks about how I represented Trump in the Manhattan's DA case. And here, listen to what he says. Here, play this clip.
I represented President Trump in the Manhattan DA case and in Jack Smith's prosecutions. So I lived it every single day for 2 years, what was happening. And this country, the people in this room, they're the ones that infected change. They're the ones that said, no, you had a man that was indicted 6 separate times, counting the superseding indictments. And yet this country said, no way. So that was the first glimmer of hope that we can be better. The other things that are happening, there is not a single man or woman at the Department of Justice who had anything to do with those prosecutions.
I want to bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Talking Feds podcast, and Talking Feds Substack. So Harry Litman was the top federal prosecutor in the Western District of Pennsylvania. Harry also had a top position at the main Justice Department building in Washington, D.C., ultimately reporting up to Harry, someone like a deputy AG who reports up to the Attorney General. And so your direct relationship with people in those types of positions, when you hear him make those incriminating admissions and say those things, it's deeply personal for the nation to have that type of behavior so despicable. But also, I'm just curious your perspective given your leadership roles.
Wow. Let me start with the figure of Blanch himself. So there's a special level of revulsion and bitterness and enmity that all the loyal servants of the DOJ for generations have against and about Todd Blanch, because he is someone who was in the SDNY. He wasn't a great assistant there, but he was part of the culture and knows better, so plainly knows better. So this is just complete corruption and complicity that he is now flying this flag as high as anyone. And as for absolute reasons of raw ambition, and by all accounts, he hopes to go the Emile Beauvais route before all is said and done onto the bench. That's point 1 about Blanche. Point 2 about Blanche. The Talking Feds podcast will periodically do, this was actually our origin, special episodes focusing on DOJ. We just taped one, and it will actually be published on the coming Monday, March 30th, I guess. And he is clearly the enforcer, the guy who is really calling the shots and running the department. Pam Bondi stays in the background, trots out when she has to, and otherwise issues these, YouTubes or goes on Fox News, doesn't have any kind of confrontation. But listen to what he just said. Let's start here. He's boasting as if it was an incident of justice that anyone who worked on any of these cases, anyone who was assigned to a high priority prosecution and did their job, has now been purged from the department. In other words, a raw political purge. And let me just cut to the chase on what's implicit in everything he says, and that the guest, his host said as well, which is that the so-called weaponization of the DOJ under Biden, there's a very, very easy, simple way, Ben, to test whether that has any holds water at all. And it's the credo of the federal prosecutor that was sacrosanct to every prosecutor now and has been completely shredded. Namely, was there probable cause to believe a crime had been committed, and could you actually get a conviction? Deep immoral ethical breach to bring a case otherwise. Was it the case with Donald Trump? I think that it's really, prosecutors on all sides will say, of course it was. You've just put it. What are you really supposed to think, that people threaten the peaceful transfer of power and have a presidentially revved up insurrection of Congress, and that somehow that's not criminal? And we saw them again and again, and as they appeared and almost all pleaded guilty in the DC District Court. These were absolute criminal ruffian terrorists, and it's remarkable that anyone could try to say now that they shouldn't have been prosecuted, or would actually boast of doing justice by releasing them all. Contrast with what's going on now, we have case after case after case, and they mention them actually there, including Letitia James, including Alvin Bragg, well, that crowd. And those people, in fact, have been indicted with absolute no evidence, complete dereliction of everything that the department stands for, and he is fucking bragging about it. Everything he says can be translated down to whatever is good for Donald Trump's personal agenda, including retribution. That's what this Department of Justice stands for. And really, it ought to be an emblem of deep shame for this guy, especially because he was once part of a DOJ, unlike Pam Bondi, unlike the others who are there, unlike, say, Stephen Miller, who understood what the very basic and simple but extremely fundamental axioms that make for a Department of Justice without fear or favor. And they've taken that and replaced it with a Department of Justice with fear and favor, and that he's boasting about that in front of a crowd that's ha ha ha. We're really glad that January 6th insurrectionists were all freed. We're really glad that anyone who touched the investigation is now gone. No one carries a gun who ever worked on these clearly important righteous prosecutions. This is absolutely anti-American for starters, but just really he's such an abject traitor to everything about the rule of law, everything about the Department of Justice, everything about the cause of democratic self-rule, and he once knew better. This guy is flat out despicable.
That's why I wanted to get your take on this, Harry, knowing your leadership positions. And I'm glad you didn't hold back. And Harry doesn't hold back on his YouTube channel. It's called Talking Feds on YouTube. Watch unfiltered legal analysis brought to you by one of the wisest legal minds out there today, Harry Litman. He also has a Substack called Talking Feds and a podcast called Talking Feds. So check it out. Thanks, Harry.
Hey, thanks, Ben.
And hit subscribe here. Help us get to 7 million subscribers.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to add the MeidasTouch podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for new updates every single day.